the Pakistani government has made pretty clear that they won't have him back. And this is a very common problem. It applies to all problems relating to deportation and removal. In many cases, the problem isn't the law or isn't human rights, it's that the country of origin will simply not cooperate.
The government is coming under mounting pressure to change immigration laws so that the leader of the Rochdale grooming gang can be deported. Andy Burnham says he'll ask the Home and Foreign Secretaries to push for the deportation of 73-year-old Shabir Ahmed, who was convicted of 30 child rape offences and was released yesterday. Now, under a law that was passed in 1971, any Commonwealth citizen who arrived in the UK before 1973 and had been here for at least 5 years cannot be deported. Here to explain more is Dominic Grieve, the former Conservative Attorney General, who can explain. Dominic, good morning.
Good morning.
So tell us, what would normally happen in a case like this? How easy is it to deport someone?
But if they're a Commonwealth immigrant that came in before 1973 and has been here for 5 years, it's impossible, because there is a law that says it's impossible. And the origin of that law is the view that was taken then, I think it's a relic of imperial past, that Commonwealth citizens had equal rights, and that even if they didn't take British nationality, once they were here and had been here for 5 years before 1973, they were treated to all intents and purposes as if they were British. But bear in mind that Commonwealth citizens even today have the vote in general elections, even if they don't have British nationality. So that's the origin of it. Can it be changed? Yes, it can be revoked. There have been some arguments that it would be wrong to revoke it because it would be retrospective legislation, but I'm not sure I agree with that, because it would simply be bringing people in line with the rules as they exist for everybody else who is foreign and living in this country. And I think also you can make the perfectly good argument that it's fair because it could only apply to somebody who is currently constituting their presence not being conducive to the public good today. So it would be on the basis that the person who is living in this country today, who may have come in before 1973, is currently, their presence is not conducive to the public good. But then the next problem is, when you've done that, would you be able to get rid of Mr. Shabir? And I think that's very unlikely, because his other nationality is Pakistani, and the Pakistani government has made pretty clear that they won't have him back. And this is a very common problem. It applies to all problems relating to deportation and removal. In many cases, the problem isn't the law or isn't human rights, it's that the country of origin will simply not cooperate.
And you can understand why they don't want to take him back.
You can, yes, indeed. But it's not just in cases of this sort. They often countries won't take back asylum seekers who've come here.
So what is Shabir Ahmed's current legal position?
Well, his current legal position is that he is a Commonwealth national living in the United Kingdom and protected from deportation by virtue of the Immigration Act 1971. The fact that he isn't a British national doesn't mean that he doesn't have a right to reside here by virtue of that act.
Yes, and what is extremely painful for many of the victims is they were promised that he would have been deported. Why, Dominic? I mean, he served a long sentence. Why is it that only now are we wrestling with this problem of what to do with him?
I don't know the answer to that. The truth is, the problem has been present throughout his period of imprisonment. A decision was made to strip him of his British nationality. That was done some time ago. But it was obvious then, or should have been obvious then, that despite having done that, it wasn't going to facilitate his removal unless two things were to happen. One, an amendment to the Immigration Act 1971, and secondly, an agreement with Pakistan that they would take him back.
Yeah, and those things haven't happened. I mean, right now, he left prison yesterday. We understand he's in a 24-hour staffed accommodation wearing GPS electronically monitored tags. We should know where he is. What do you think is the most likely course of action in terms of where he goes?
I have no idea where he'll go. He's clearly under licence, and therefore he is going to spend a considerable period of time under supervision. But ultimately, that supervision will come to an end. And he's clearly an undesirable person to have in this country. There's every reason to wish to see him removed. But as I say, there are a number of hurdles that have to be gone through. And the biggest hurdle of the lot, in my view, is going to be getting cooperation from Pakistan. Now, the Home Secretary has been quite good in recent years in coercing or persuading third countries to take back their nationals. And the way you usually do it is by saying, well, if you won't take this person back, we'll stop giving you any visas to come to the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
That is quite a confrontational approach if you can't reach an agreement. And I get the impression, but I may be wrong about this, that the Pakistani government may themselves have removed Mr. Shabir's nationality, Pakistani nationality, although that would be his birth nationality and a very strange thing to do.
Yes, and then he'd be stuck in an even more legally complicated situation.
Yes, he would. And ultimately, there is a United Nations charter which says you can't render somebody stateless. And in any case, it doesn't matter if they are stateless. Unless you're going to kill them, they're going to be living somewhere. And if they can't be taken outside the United Kingdom, they're going to be living in the United Kingdom, however horrible a crime they may in the past have committed.
Yeah, so interestingly, from your perspective, the difficulty wouldn't be changing the law here, even if it was just for one case. The problem is going to be that you've got to get Pakistan on side.
You've got to get Pakistan on side, but to make clear, you'd have to change the law for all cases in future, and I don't have an objection to that. As I say, there is an argument about retrospection, and some people would say that you can't pass this legislation because it would have retrospective application. But I'm not persuaded about that, because I think that ultimately it's about his behaviour and and the presence of the person today, which is the relevant consideration. There may, of course, be other arguments that he would seek to advance. He might seek to advance Article 8 arguments about a right to a private and family life in the United Kingdom. But I don't really see those working in view of the fact he's just come out of prison for 19 years.
Is there a case that says we should take responsibility for crimes carried out by British citizens?
Well, there is such an argument. He carried out these crimes when he was here, and I think at the time when he also had British nationality. But equally, we do have a procedure in this country, which I don't think is unfair, to remove UK nationality from persons who have acquired it, although in fact we also have the capacity to do it to people who are dual nationals by birth, which I think is much more controversial. But that doesn't apply to Mr. Shabir.
It has been so helpful to have your explanation. Thank you. Dominic Grieve, the former Conservative Attorney General, on the sort of legal and diplomatic limbo that this current situation is in, and of course fury from the families, the victims, who were told that the man who orchestrated the grooming gang that was so vicious and so cruel in his crimes. You know, he served 14 years for multiple rape and sexual offences against young girls in Rochdale in Greater Manchester. They were told he would be deported, and now he's been released from prison, and it is not legally possible to do so.